Basketball. Basketball players with hands measuring over 9.5 inches have a 12% lower turnover rate under defensive pressure compared to their smaller-handed teammates. The physics is brutally simple. More surface area equals better ball control. When Chris Paul, sporting 9.5-inch hands, dribbles through traffic, his fingertips create more contact points with the ball, giving him microscopic advantages that compound over thousands of dribbles per game. Ball control isn't just about palm size, though. Finger span directly affects how players grip during crossovers and behind-the-back moves. Research shows players with wider spans apply more uniform pressure distribution across the ball's surface, reducing those random bounces that make coaches lose their minds. It's like having built-in steering assistance for your dribble. The evolutionary backstory makes this even more interesting. Human hands evolved two distinct grip patterns: the power grip developed for clubbing and throwing tools, and the precision grip for fine manipulation. Basketball players use both simultaneously: the power grip for rebounding and the precision grip for shooting and passing. This dual grip capability is why humans dominate at basketball, while other primates with different hand structures would fail miserably. The defensive deflection advantage is where hand size becomes almost unfair. Giannis Antetokounmpo's 9.8-inch hands extend his blocking envelope by roughly 10 centimeters compared to average players. That translates to 1.5 deflections per game versus zero point 0.9 for players with 8.5-inch hands. Those extra deflections don't just pad stats, they're possession changes that swing games. NBA tracking data confirms that deflections are one of the most consistent predictors of defensive success, and hand size directly determines how many passing lanes a defender can realistically contest. Wingspan matters too, but it's the combination of wingspan and hand size that creates elite defenders. Teams with above-average wingspans show significantly better defensive rebounding percentages, lower opponent three-point shooting percentages, and more blocks, but wingspan alone doesn't explain steals or deflections. That's where actual hand dimensions come into play, allowing defenders to tip passes they can reach. Rebounding reveals the most controversial hand size advantage. Each additional centimeter of hand span correlates with a 2% increase in rebound conversion rate. Kevin Garnett's 9.6-inch hands helped him secure 15% more contested rebounds than league average players. The grip strength advantage is so pronounced that some coaches now factor hand measurements into draft evaluations, though they'd never admit it publicly. However, oversized hands can actually hurt shooting performance. Case in point, Shaquille O'Neal with 10.5-inch hands. Players with hands exceeding 10 inches often struggle with consistent ball release speed and arc. Their larger surface area creates more friction during the release, requiring stronger wrist control to achieve proper rotation. It's why some elite shooters deliberately use shooting techniques that minimize palm contact, relying more on fingertip control. Football. NFL scouts measure quarterback hands with the intensity of jewelers examining diamonds, and there's actual science behind the madness. Quarterbacks with hands 10 inches or larger generate 5 to 8 additional ball rotations per second, creating tighter spirals that travel more accurately downfield. Andrew Luck's massive hands produce spirals so tight they improved receiver catch rates by 12% on intermediate routes. The biomechanics trace back to how human hands evolved for throwing, one of our species' defining physical abilities. Early humans who could throw rocks or spears accurately at prey had massive survival advantages. The same neural pathways and muscle structures that allowed our ancestors to throw projectiles now enable quarterbacks to throw perfect spirals. Larger hands simply provide more leverage during the release phase, maximizing the rotational force transferred to the football. Wet weather performance exposes the real hand size advantage. Players with hand spans of 9.7 inches or greater experience 23% fewer fumbles during rain-soaked practices. The physics involves surface tension and water displacement. Larger hands shed water more effectively while maintaining grip friction. It's why some cold-weather quarterbacks with smaller hands resort to specialized grip sprays that would make their equipment managers cringe. The spiral consistency advantage is real, but it comes with hidden costs. Quarterbacks with extremely large hands sometimes develop slower release mechanics because they have too much control over the ball. They can become obsessed with perfect spiral generation at the expense of quick decision-making. Some quarterbacks with smaller hands actually develop faster releases because they can't afford to overthink their grip. Baseball. Handspan determines which pitches are physically possible to throw effectively. Pitchers with hands measuring 9.2 inches or wider can generate 2 miles per hour additional fastball velocity simply because they can achieve longer finger contact time during release. The biomechanics involve leverage. Longer fingers create more torque during the whip-like motion that generates velocity. The evolutionary power grip shows up most clearly in baseball. When pitchers wind up and release, they're using the same muscle activation patterns our ancestors used for clubbing and throwing rocks at predators or prey. The flexor muscles in the forearm that evolved for gripping clubs now generate the torque that makes a 100-mile-per-hour fastball possible. It's functional anatomy that's millions of years old being repurposed for modern sports. Four-seam fastballs benefit most from large hands because wider spans allow pitchers to place their fingertips across the widest part of the ball's seams. This maximizes backspin dwell time, creating the rising effect that makes fastballs appear to jump on hitters. Garrett Cole's 9.3-inch hands contribute significantly to his ability to generate elite-level backspin rates. Recent research using high-speed cameras and friction sensors confirmed that finger ball contact duration increases by 8 to 12 milliseconds for every additional centimeter of finger length, enough to add measurable velocity. Circle changeups reveal the opposite advantage. Pitchers with smaller, more nimble fingers can create tighter grips that generate more downward ball movement. The physics requires creating asymmetrical pressure points on the ball, something that's easier with more precise finger control rather than raw size. This explains why some of the best changeup pitchers in MLB history had relatively small hands for professional athletes. Curveballs and sliders require specific finger strength ratios that aren't necessarily correlated with overall hand size. Pitchers with longer index fingers relative to their thumbs can generate more side spin on breaking pitches. This anthropometric ratio varies independently of total hand span, which is why scouting departments now measure individual finger lengths rather than just overall hand dimensions. Bat control advantages from hand size are more controversial. Longer palms increase leverage during swings, potentially adding 3 to 5 miles per hour of bat head speed. Contact hitters like DJ LeMahieu compensate for smaller hand spans through specialized grip techniques and finger strength training. The advantage isn't insurmountable, but it requires more deliberate conditioning. Power hitters with larger hands can generate more torque at the point of contact, but smaller-handed players often develop quicker bat speeds through the strike zone. Tennis. Serve velocity correlates strongly with grip span, showing correlation coefficients of 0.82 in controlled studies. The biomechanics involve pronation torque at ball contact. Larger thumbs and longer index fingers create more rotational force during the serving motion. This translates to 3 to 7 miles per hour additional serve speed for players with hand spans exceeding 9 inches. The precision grip evolution shows up perfectly in tennis. The same fine motor control our ancestors needed for threading needles, crafting tools, and performing delicate tasks now determines how precisely a player can angle their racket face at ball contact. The neural pathways controlling thumb and index finger coordination are among the most densely innervated in the human body, a direct result of evolutionary pressures favoring manual dexterity. Milos Raonic's 9.8-inch hands exemplify this advantage perfectly. His ability to generate 140 miles per hour serves isn't just about height and shoulder flexibility. His oversized hands allow maximum pronation torque at the moment of ball impact. The leverage advantage is so significant that tennis academies now factor hand measurements into player development projections. Coaches can predict a junior player's maximum serve velocity potential within 5 miles per hour based primarily on hand dimensions and shoulder rotation measurements. Grip strength testing reveals another hidden advantage. Players with larger hands demonstrate higher rates of force development during racket grip tasks, meaning they can generate maximum gripping force faster than smaller-handed players. This rapid force generation strongly correlates with post-impact ball speed, one of the strongest biomechanical correlations in tennis research. The ability to squeeze the racket handle with explosive force right before ball contact transfers directly to serve velocity. Racket control reveals more subtle advantages. Players with wider finger spans learn topspin and slice techniques faster because they receive better tactile feedback through the racket handle. Tennis instructors note that students with 9-inch or larger hands typically master spin generation 20 to 30% faster than their smaller-handed peers. The increased surface area, contact with the grip, provides more sensory information about racket angle and rotation. But excessive hand size creates its own problems in tennis. Players with very large hands often struggle with extreme spin serves like kick serves because their range of wrist flexion becomes restricted. The larger surface area in contact with the grip can actually limit the fine motor control needed for nuanced shot making. Some players with hands exceeding 10 inches report difficulty executing drop shots and touch volleys that require minimal racket movement. The grip size controversy runs deeper than most players realize. Oversized hands can lead to overgripping, where players squeeze the racket too tightly and lose fluidity in their strokes. Professional players often use custom grip modifications to optimize their natural hand size advantages while minimizing the drawbacks. Roger Federer famously used a smaller grip size than expected for his hand dimensions specifically to maintain wrist flexibility. Rock climbing. Rock climbing flips the hand size advantage completely upside down. Smaller fingers concentrate force on tiny holds, increasing friction per unit area. Climbers with narrow fingers can fit into microcrimps that larger-handed climbers simply cannot use. It's basic physics. Pressure equals force divided by area, so less surface area means more pressure on each contact point. The contact strength principle explains why some world-class climbers have surprisingly small hands. They develop specialized finger strength that allows them to support their entire body weight on holds smaller than a coin. Training involves progressively smaller edge sizes until their fingers can generate enormous forces through minimal contact areas. Elite climbers can hang from edges measuring 6 to 8 millimeters deep, a feat that's biomechanically easier with smaller finger pads. Crimp strength testing shows that finger size matters more than overall hand size. Climbers with shorter, thicker fingers generate more force on small edges than climbers with long, slender fingers of the same hand span. The finger flexor tendons can achieve better mechanical advantage when the finger joint angles are more acute, which naturally occurs with shorter fingers on small holds. Swimming. Swimmers with hand spans of 10 inches or larger achieve 2 to 4% faster lap times in sprint events simply because their hands function as larger paddles. The propulsive surface area advantage is mathematically straightforward. More hand area means more water displacement per stroke. Olympic swimmers often have disproportionately large hands relative to their body size for exactly this reason. Michael Phelps's hands measure 10.7 inches from thumb to pinky in full spread, and he wears size 14 shoes, both contributing to his paddle-like propulsion. The surface area of his hands and feet provide measurably more thrust per stroke than average-sized swimmers, even when technique is identical. Biomechanical analysis estimates his hand size alone accounted for 1 to 2% of his speed advantage, which at Olympic levels means the difference between gold and fourth place. Martial arts and boxing. Hand size affects both punching power and injury prevention in combat sports. Larger hands create more stable fist alignment, reducing the risk of boxers' fractures during impact. The increased knuckle surface area distributes impact forces more evenly, allowing fighters to throw harder punches with less risk of hand injuries. The evolutionary context is particularly relevant here. Human hands didn't just evolve for tool use, they evolved for fighting. A controversial 2012 study argued that the proportions of human hands were specifically selected for forming an effective fist, with the thumb position and finger curl pattern optimized for delivering and absorbing punching impacts. This fist-first hypothesis suggests our hands evolved as much for violence as for dexterity. Fighters with larger hands can generate more knockout power because they distribute force over a larger impact zone while maintaining structural integrity. Smaller-handed fighters compensate through specialized wrapping techniques that create artificial stability and modified punching angles that concentrate force on fewer knuckles. Some combat sports now require hand size declarations to ensure fair matchups in weight classes where hand dimensions vary significantly. Subscribe to learn about more hidden advantages in sports.